let's call the meeting to order. And we need voice approval of the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
I'll make a motion.
I'll
to
second.
approve it.
Very good. Say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our discussion items, school board facilities input session.
So we have Pat Obram here from ICS Consulting. Most of you hopefully know Pat. If not, he will introduce himself and talk a little bit about his background, and you can do the same if you'd like. Pat's been working with our district now for a couple months, I think, and he's met with our administrative team in October and kind of worked through some questions and just a way to get input and feedback and ideas and perspectives from them, and I anticipate they will do something similar today. So Pat, thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Does everybody know Pat?
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Pat.
Matt. I'm Matt.
Good to meet you.
I'm Joe.
Hey there, good to see you. And I know you guys. Well, ready to go?
You do.
Okay. Yeah, as Scott said, I think we've spent a good amount of time, and I think we've made some good progress over the last several weeks, at least trying to get that initial baseline of perspectives and kind of opinions and input from different folks. We've talked to the facilities committee, clearly. We've talked to the admin group. I've had many one-on-one or two-on-one type meetings with different stakeholders in the community. We had our first input session a week or so ago. Wasn't the attendance we wanted, but it was at least another way to try to gain insight and get some of that initial feedback. Really today is intended to be the same thing with you guys as board members. And I know I've probably gathered different thoughts and opinions from some of you informally over the course of the last several weeks, but wanted to run through a very similar exercise with you guys and just make sure that as board members you have a chance to at least communicate where your heads are at from a perspective, what challenges are facing the district, what went right or what went wrong with some of the last referendum attempts, kind of where things are at. So I want today to really just be informal discussion, and we can kind of use the questions that were developed as a basis or at least a starting point to talk through things. But I'm hoping to pull all this together, get some themes, and one of the things, quite frankly, it might do today is determine if you guys as board members are all on the same page or not. And it's not a bad thing either way. It's just a good thing to understand moving forward as you guys are making decisions. It's probably very helpful to have awareness of where everyone's heads are at on things. So as simple as that, and to stop rambling, the first question was really from a community perspective, what great things are happening in Marshall?
I would say our partnerships between us and the city and the college, which has been going on for years, is a good thing, great thing. We're a lot together, especially us in the college.
We just had a 1-hour EDA, Economic Development Authority tour of Marshall last Friday. I know Bill was on it, on the one I was on. And there's so much going on. There's building, there's businesses adding on, there's homes building in all different income levels. It's just a lot. We just had a new group that took over sort of the downtown area.
Okay.
And they're reinvesting constantly in the community. So there's, and the tour could have gone on longer too.
Yeah.
It's very exciting.
Nice. What other thoughts?
With reference to our schools, I've been in the district for 38 years in different capacities. We are a wraparound school district. Parents who have children with heavy needs
Yep.
move to Marshall.
Okay.
because we are collaborative with several agencies. But we offer wraparound services from age 0 through age 21 for children who have high needs.
Yep.
Which is, and I think it's nice because parents do look for those school districts that offer that. And we are a regional center for that.
Absolutely.
And we can be very proud of that.
What do you feel, and I guess this is probably in response to both, some of the things that are happening with the economic development and some of the services you guys are providing, how good of a job do you think you're doing communicating and celebrating those things? Are you doing?
I think we can always do more to communicate the things that are going on. We had a session last week where it was the chancellor from the state university system was out and just wanted to learn about partnerships and was focused around workforce. And so one of the things I did is I asked Scott to kind of present and highlight some of the activities that we do in partnership. And many of the people in attendance said, I didn't realize you were doing that together. So
Right.
We're doing a lot, but people aren't aware of it. And I think that goes to both the things that both of you have said. We can tell our story a lot better, I think. The economic development in this community, we've seen the question, well, what about Schwan's? Where does Schwan's fit into this? And what I don't think many people realize is that our economy in this community is so diversified. While Schwan's has shrunk in what they do here in the community, there have been a lot of other entities that have stepped up and are doing great things in this community and have filled in. In fact, we've seen a net gain in business in this community over the last 10 years. So there's a lot of unawareness, I think, when it comes to that.
Right.
And I think the other one is, our partnerships with our other schools. We have several very strong parochial schools in this community, and they don't offer all the services that we offer, and they recognize that. And so they're very, I think, comfortable in reaching out to us and
we reaching out to them.
and working both ways. So I think it's a good partnership. Many people, I think, view it as a competition, and it's not. I think we all have our place in the community, and I don't know that we highlight those partnerships as much as we could.
Picking up on that and the growth of our industry and businesses, young parents look at school districts when they relocate, and I think we have been a gift to the businesses in the district, because when parents come and they ask questions and they tour the buildings and so forth, their bottom line isn't just this job I've got here.
Right.
What's in it for my kids?
Right.
And so our school district does attract people who are going to be working for some business here.
Absolutely. So it's a win-win from that
Yes, it
standpoint.
is.
Absolutely.
I think as a whole, we do a really good job with our school. It's a great community to live in. There's low crime. We've had some of our Somalian population a few years ago, due to cutbacks, had to move to St. Cloud. As soon as they reopened some plants here, they moved back because it's a better community to live in.
That's great.
We have a great school system, very diverse community, very low crime. We have a university, four-year university right here. I think we just have a hard time communicating that.
Right.
Selling our program for informing people for some reason.
And I think that's why I asked the question. I think one of the first meetings I was at, I remember one of the initiatives you're rolling out as a district is really kind of a continuous communications plan or improvement plan, and that's very refreshing to hear and to see, because we work with so many districts that the only time it seems they're trying to make a connection with the community is when they're asking for something, right? Oh, we've got an operating levy this fall, we have to go start connecting with the community, or oh, we've got to build a building, we have to go start connecting with the community. And to have that, and people see that, right? And if there was that, we're all Minnesota nice and we're all kind of humble, and so it's not necessarily in our nature to celebrate or brag about all of the good things happening, but what ends up happening is the pendulum swings completely the other way, to where you're almost too afraid to mention or talk about any of it. So it's pretty energizing to see you guys are looking at doing that.
Do you think part of it is, this is the norm for us? The norm is working together in partnerships and all this good stuff, and so we take it for granted.
You do,
So
I think
our-
that's part of it, absolutely.
So is the community.
But to,
We have a gift, we're a county seat, you know,
Yep.
and we work closely with the county. And Joe was talking about the college. When I was elementary principal here, we had, and it continues, our partnership with the education department at the college is just wonderful.
mhm.
You know, we're a proving ground for student teachers, and in fact, we hire really good student teachers. That's been a real gift for us. And the nice thing is the post-secondary enrollment options. Our high school is right across the street from
Right.
the college, so kids
How perfect.
have an opportunity. I saw, what, 2 of our kids have done both years at the college. The only one thing that bothers me with that is kids in neighboring districts don't have that same opportunity. I mean, the advantage that our Marshall kids, because we live right across the street.
Yeah, and it's interesting that that bothers you, but at the same time, it shouldn't penalize you either. You're fortunate enough to have it, so.
Well, I know, but, you know, I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
when the legislature did that, they didn't think about the kid who has to travel from Canby,
Right.
loses a half a day to come into a
Just to
course.
do it.
Yeah, and I think that's why you see the largest growth in people taking advantage of concurrent enrollment like that is now you're seeing the college classes offered
Offered
in,
on campus.
on campus so
Yeah.
that they stay there and the funding stays with them.
But I think to your earlier point, as often as you hear, oh, I didn't know you guys were doing that, or oh, I didn't know you offered that, those should just be hitting you in the face saying, oh, yep, we got to continue to communicate that or get that word out or improve that. That's a big deal.
One thing I think we do very well is we, you know, sports get the ink, most of the ink in the newspaper, but I think we do very well in our school district at board meetings is we bring in exemplary programs,
Mhm.
student activities which are televised.
Yep.
And a lot of our public does look at cable TV and see those other things that are happening with kids that are beyond sports.
I think, and Karen, you might know the answer to this, Marshall is one of only 2 communities in Lyon County that has experienced population growth, and I think there aren't many communities in southwest Minnesota that are actually experiencing that growth as well. When we're talking about the community, that's not common in southwest Minnesota.
I think our monitor had said a couple years ago that it was Marshall, Rochester, and Twin Cities areas, that's it.
Yeah, could have been.
It's those regional centers, yeah.
Regional center, yeah.
How do you, let's switch gears a little bit. What do you see as some of the biggest challenges?
I just say communications, I think we do a terrible job of communicating.
How do you mean, Jeff?
Well, I don't know, it seems like we talk to people in the community, they don't know what we're doing. I don't think we put our successes out there enough. Now, how do you do that? That's the $1 million question, or the $35 million question.
I think it's a give and take, though. I mean, I know working, so we've had a shoe store in Marshall for, what, 8 years? And there's still people that walk in from Marshall and say, oh, I didn't know there was a shoe store here. So it goes both ways. I think sometimes people say, oh, I didn't know that, I didn't know that. Well, and you didn't take time to find out. Marshall's, I mean, you hear all the time, Marshall's dying, Marshall, we're not doing anything, da-da-da-da-da. Well, those same people that are saying that, and it's not, you know, just your average hide-in-the-dust kind of person. Those people, I didn't see any of those people on the tour. So sometimes people say, oh, I don't know, I don't have time to worry about that, I'm worried about myself. So it does go both ways.
Well, I agree with that, but we need to get our story out more. Our successes more. Somehow to do that, I don't know. I visited with a person in Rochester school system. They have a communications director for their school system. And they see that through their webpage, the newspaper, company flyers, they send all that out to them. That's one of their focuses, is to communicate. We can always improve our communications because, I mean, we'll have this meeting tonight at the high school. If we have 25 people show up, I'll be surprised.
Right. And I think if you do it right, it takes time, and you're right, there are some people that just selective listening, selective engagement, but it can also be very contagious. I mean, if you look at what the political ads were like over the last several months and look at what the news is like every night, right? It's all doom and gloom and this is wrong and this is wrong and this is, I mean, so much so I don't even let my girls watch the news anymore. If you are out there more in your face with celebrating successes and celebrating good things, it can be, you know, contagious and drive morale and momentum and really change a community.
I think the other thing on the communication front is that communication has changed so much. Nobody reads the paper. I shouldn't say nobody reads the paper, but a lot less people read the paper. Radio has shifted. You've got the satellite radios. You've got people don't watch, you know, network television anymore. They're on Netflix. They're all on here and are getting their news from Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter. It's all different channels, and so you have to be on all of the channels because there's not one that hits everybody anymore. And so that creates challenges because that's more work.
What other challenges do you guys see?
I think probably the biggest challenge we have is getting people to understand that our enrollment growth is real. I'm going to go back to the Schwann's example. We saw it at that open session. Well, what are we going to do when Schwann's closes? You know, or Schwann's sells. Folks, Schwann's doesn't employ the same number of people that they used to in this community, yet our enrollment growth has still continued to occur. There have been other businesses that have grown. There have been new businesses that have opened. And we need to somehow disconnect, you know, one happening to let them see that, hey, this enrollment growth is real. These people are here. These students have been born in our communities. You know, we did a 10-year study a number of years ago, and that, you know, people question the validity of it. Well, the interesting thing is, guess what? They're born already. They're here in Lyon County. That's how we know 6 of those 10 years, those projections are going to be pretty close. And so try to get people to just to understand and realize that, unless they've got kids in the school where they've seen the growth and they've seen the size of their classrooms. And I think that's our biggest challenge, getting people to understand it's real.
Enrollment, okay.
Not just that. It's always been a challenge to get the yes voters to the polls. The no voters show up and they run, and we've seen it. I mean, they'll have a carload of no voters. I mean, every one that has gone down, and I've talked to people who were yes voters. Oh, I forgot. I didn't get there. And each of us has heard that.
Opposition is loyal. You're absolutely right. They're the U.S. Postal Service when it comes to getting to the polls to vote, right?
The no people get there.
I think the other question that I have, one that I struggle with is, you know, us as board members we as a board can't go out and say, vote yes, vote yes. We're restricted on what we can do. So how far can we go in getting people to advocate for it, rather than just providing the information on?
You can go further than you think as community members, as long as you're very specific with how you enter those conversations and preface statements and opinions, speaking as a community member or speaking as a board member, or, you know, you've got to be careful. You've got a role to fulfill either way, but a lot of school board members shy away from advocacy, and as community members, you don't have to.
Yeah, and I just think that's one of the things, you know, we've heard the comment, well, the board didn't do enough. The board hasn't communicated it very well. And I think we sometimes feel like we can't go as far as we need to. And so I would look for some guidance in how far we can push that as board members.
I would say, and I'm generalizing here, but I would say the vast majority of districts we work with, it's very rare for board members to go further than they should. I mean, there's always that fear that you're referencing about, you know, where do I lie? So
I've always had a tough time with that. Because if you're impassioned about what you're doing,
Yep, absolutely.
you should be able to say how you're impassioned about what you're doing.
And you can as a community member.
So you say speaking on behalf of myself, not speaking on behalf of the school board,
Yep, you just have to be careful and clarify it for people, but, yeah, absolutely.
right? And parents.
Did you get a chance to talk to people that voted no?
Some of them, yep, I have, both at the community input meeting and some of
Was it
the
mostly the
smaller
price
group.
money thing?
There were a number of different factors, and I'm trying to develop themes. Sheer price was a big chunk of it. Perceptions related to how,
If we needed it.
right, is the high school truly 15 or 20 years old, or is that the new high school? You know, things like that played into it.
Past history.
That's another
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
So what do you
It's a
see
new high
as,
school.
what about the needs from a facility standpoint? What do you see as the biggest needs?
My bottom line, we need a new elementary school to replace West Side, grade 2 through 4. And in my discussion with people in the community, they would support that. And the people I've talked to, they also would support safety issues. I think that will go. I think we've identified the needs there enough, and all they have to do is drive by West Side, go into West Side when it's busy and see the mess that's there. They know that the boilers are 55 years old, and that's gonna go, and the plumbing's not good. I think people would support a new elementary building. And if we were to build a new grade 2 through 4, that would free up 8 classrooms at Parkside.
Parkside, absolutely.
To give us more space for early childhood.
Yep.
And I think they'd support that. The sense that I have from the people I've spoken with, and one of whom is my son-in-law, who is really connected with his people at US Bank, that he said, Bill, that'll go. People know, people understand the need there.
Everyone agree with that? Any other perspectives or thoughts? Or
Agree with that. Plus-
Yeah, I would, go ahead.
Plus, so put the early childhood over at Parkside, now you're freeing up some space at middle school
Yep.
as well. So it kind of helps 3 schools in one. Talking to like an older crew, and this is a crew that you would assume that would say, we're not for it because they come from the ag community, they don't have kids in the school, and they said, you know what, we had people supporting us when our kids were here. We need to support the people whose kids are here. In their mind, ask for the money for this new elementary school, and then on a second question, ask for money for a high school. Which sort of blew me out of the water when they said it.
I was surprised at a comment that was made at the last session about ask for what you need now. Well, one of the things that I wrote is that, well, that was our problem last time, is our need didn't change, so our ask didn't change last time.
Still need it.
Twice we asked pretty much the same thing. We tweaked it a little bit so that we say it changed, but we didn't really make a substantive change because the need didn't change. And I think the analysis that was done showed us what was the right way to go. So I was really surprised to see a comment up there that said, you know, because we've talked about, well, let's solve the elementary problem first, and then we'll deal with the high school challenge. And one of the comments was, ask for what you need now, don't phase it out. Now, that's one comment, but if there's one, there's maybe more. So that's an intriguing option to ask for 1 and then 2. I don't know.
You saw the MSBA thing today, those that were passed and so forth, and some were 2 or 3 questions, and they may have passed 1. But, you know, the high school piece we could ask as a second question.
Yeah.
Put it on there. You know, that we know what the needs are. I'm just saying people will support a new elementary. I can't say they're gonna, because they don't see.
It's
the
obvious
need.
they can see it at West Side, and they don't see it at the high school because it is the newest of our facilities, even though it's 15 years old.
Exactly.
And it has probably some of the greatest space challenges,
Yeah.
just because we've reached its capacity. I had some questions from a community member after the last session. Said, what was the high school built for?
How many students?
How many students was it built for?
Capacity-wise.
And, you know, Scott and Tricia or Dan, I don't remember who provided it, you know, so it was built for X, and we've reached that. And I think the other important part is it was designed to be added onto. knowing
Right.
that there may be future needs. I don't think we knew at the time that there were going to be, but it was designed such that it could be added on to, and I think that's something that people aren't aware of, and so it's not as expensive a change as you might think.
I do, just not to birdwalk on it, but the ask for it all now is an answer or a comment we hear very, very often. Sometimes it's very genuine, sometimes it's a very clear distraction or delay tactic, right? Of course, ask for it all now because it'll be too expensive and it'll never
I
pass.
think I
Yeah.
heard the other town is just too much money. We're asking for too much. And everybody wants it phased in. So they want to build something now and then maybe in 5 and 10 years build something else.
What do you think the big difference between referendum results were? I mean, obviously 2016 it was 220 votes. Last year it got smashed.
I think it was timing. I think the overall political climate across the country, came to fruition here. There's just a huge anti-tax sentiment. The farm economy came into play. I mean, it was just a perfect storm of negativity.
There's some people, this goes back to a communication issue, but there's people that think the Red Baron Arena belongs to the public schools system, that we built it. There's still people that think that, and that's a communication issue.
It is, and we've tried to clarify that how many times?
But sometimes you can't communicate that, and they don't understand that.
No,
There's still people that think that the Parkside cafeteria is made out of copper.
Yeah,
Or rough.
the ceiling. There are still people who are upset that we sold Eastside, and it's being used as a school again.
Yeah.
And there are people who are asking that question, well, what about the West Side property? What are you going to do with that? There are people still
Yeah,
mad. That's
absolutely
what
there are.
we sold.
I think we tried to answer that in some conversations even last week. That there have been multiple millions of dollars that have been put into it by Grace Life. It still doesn't meet the same standards that we would need to meet. So we would have to put a lot of money. So that was a decision that was made 20 years ago, and we got hammered. You guys. Like, no, nobody here was a part of those discussions, and so
Not even Jeff?
I was here.
You had just started in.
I was here.
Yeah.
I did.
Here, but
we did
but you weren't on the
copies
board.
way
Yeah.
back then.
Even if it was, I tell people now that even if it was the wrong decision, which I still think was the right decision, so look at all the money we saved over the 20
Yeah.
years, plus all the money we were going to have to put into the building. Even if it was the wrong decision, so be it. We have to move forward.
It's-
We can't keep
That's
on
it,
doing that.
exactly. You can hindsight all day long.
Right.
When it comes to it, you're looking for a smart and strategic way to make forward progress.
And people use some of those arguments as an excuse to vote no.
Absolutely.
Right.
I had a conversation with a guy that still thinks West Side would be fine, we could just add on to it. And I said, there's really no room to add on to it. I said, why can't you build up? And I said, no, we can't really add a third floor to a little kid's school, basically is what it is. So I didn't quite understand why we wouldn't just spend whatever it was, $11 million to upgrade West Side.
Well, we don't have the property space to.
No, we can't.
I mean, we get been getting beat up all fall because of our property space over there, and our kids get to that school in the morning, and they're forced to stand on the fence until we can have enough staff and enough space to get them in there and supervise them. That's been a hot topic this fall. I've heard from several people, and that's a facilities issue.
What other dynamics are out there, challenges, or
I think
Red Baron Arenas, what other?
Another challenge is people don't understand how we educate kids these days. I mean, we have all different kinds of, from special ed to our EL program that kids being pulled out and we're teaching them in the hallway, and stuff. And people don't understand that we need more room for these special programs that we have.
That's a big piece of it, and I was going to bring that up when you talked about enrollment earlier. You're short space, right? And it's easy to forget that's really driven by two things. You've got enrollment growth, yes, but you've got growing and emerging programs and things that never existed
Exactly.
even 10 years ago. And that second piece is pretty tough for folks to understand sometimes, right? They may not get it. This, talking about how we need breakout areas and we need small and large group areas and we need, people don't get that. Some people will never get it, so it's.
Another thing that people my age really don't understand is the need for smaller class sizes because of the diversity of population. I get the argument back, well, I had 35 kids in my class, it was no big deal.
Right. Good enough for me. It was
No,
good enough for
He
me.
didn't have special ed kids in his class and kids who couldn't speak the language either.
Or girls' athletics, or, just anything.
But that's part of the mindset with some.
Right.
Yeah, I would like somehow to show people that we live in a good community, and it's a full circle. You're not going to get good professors to teach at SMSU if they don't have an elementary school where their kids go to. You're not going to get Runnings or other buildings to other companies to expand here without workers, and workers aren't going to come if they don't have a good education system.
Do you think people will, I agree wholeheartedly, do you think people will take the time to listen and connect those dots?
I don't know. I think the reason it failed last time was just a dollar issue. I really do. So maybe. I'm more concerned about, do we have to really get to a crisis? Because we were at a crisis when we built the high school.
Mm-hmm.
We had kids having class in gymnasiums. It was bad, in the hallways.
We were at
It
a
was
crisis when we
bad.
built Parkside. We had classrooms down in the old gymnasiums and in the hallway. Tricia remembers that. She was one of the kids who probably went down in the locker rooms and stuff.
If people would understand, if you don't have a good education system, your town's going to fall apart. It might take 15 years, but then you're going to have people leaving.
Well, you know what? When the schools close in the town does fall apart. Main Street drives up.
I think this district has got a strong history of supporting educational needs if we make the case. And I think you're probably right. Last time, the issue was cost. We didn't change from the time it failed when it was very close. And then all the other factors just kind of kept it from having any kind of success. So I really think it's a cost issue. I think people do recognize the need at Westside, and we have to continue to spread the word and get people to recognize the need that we have at all of our levels and all of our facilities.
Did you hear much, was anyone questioning the need last time, questioning what was being proposed? I mean, if you look at the scope last time, the big boulder was West Side, right? And then you had work additions at the high school and you had work at this facility.
You're always going to have people question it, no matter what we do.
But I don't think they were questioning the need, like Bill said, as much as they were the price.
Yeah. Is that,
I think people are finally starting to come around that we need a 2 through 4 grade school or whatever we decide to do. So.
I think part of was the economy and the political atmosphere at that time, but I think part of it also was that you came back second time with pretty much the same question.
Yep.
That's kind of a slap in the face.
yep,
You didn't hear us the first time. You didn't sharpen your pencil. You didn't
Right.
listen to us. I think that was part of it. I do. I think that was part of it. Because it was
I agree.
pretty similar.
yeah.
And we didn't have, the egg break at that time either.
Correct.
It was being contemplated
Yeah.
legislatively, but we didn't have the 40% break.
Right.
And I don't know if that's going to make a difference because the farm prices aren't worth the diddly for corn and beans right now. I don't know if that will make a difference for farmers.
I would think it would.
I think it will on some.
Think so?
That'll be nice for people. But there aren't that many farmers like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't
30
think
years ago.
that, we talk about that a lot, and
It's
it's
not a big deal
a,
anymore in Marshall.
yeah.
But it's all part of the economy though, so
Right.
50% ag-related economy,
Yeah.
it's a choice.
I'm just saying the few farmers that are out there, that 40% will make a difference.
Because there's a lot of farmers that can't vote.
Right.
You know, the landowners aren't gonna, they can't vote regardless,
Right.
if they don't live here.
One of the things I heard a couple of weeks ago in a district up north that's very heavy ag, there were a couple of farmers in it at an input meeting, and they were pretty frustrated with the taxes that they were facing if the referendum passed and how crummy prices were this year. And one of the board members who was discussing and kind of interacting with them said, yep, fully understand. In fact, I come from a farm family, but in actuality, if we look at the 20-year term of the bond that we're asking for, chances are you're going to have some good years and you're going to have some crummy years. We're not looking at it based on just this year, right? And so trying to transition that ag approach or philosophy to, yep, we know this year's crummy, but we encourage you to try to look at it over the 20-year.
We didn't have the egg break the last 2 times.
Correct.
So that's a plus.
Absolutely. And it may change some minds, it may not. I mean, there are some folks that immediately think, yep, that's a drop in the bucket, but
I have a neighbor, I love the man, Jack Hennon, everybody knows Jack. He gave me he's a guy. And he walked over to my house and he said, Bill, I just need to talk to you about this. Love the man, he's just a wonderful man. And he said, have you thought about renting space from Minnesota? And I know he told that to Scott too.
Ivanhoe.
Yeah, Ivanhoe.
They told me we should rush our good time.
I have got some questions.
But you know, he was very sincere about
Yeah.
that. And he's a farmer. I mean, he's a retired farmer,
Yep.
still owns farmland.
well, that's input though, right? So we can all
Absolutely.
kind of, we can laugh it off as, whoa, how crazy is that idea? But it's telling you that those questions exist out there, and
But you know, the neat thing is, Scott gave him time.
yeah, have
The
to.
superintendent opened the door and listened to him, and Jack told me, he said, you know, Munson listened to me. I mean, he was impressed by that Scott gave him time.
But you never know when one of those off-the-wall ideas potentially
Could be
is
the
gonna
light bulb, right?
solution, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying his isn't off-the-wall, I mean,
Well, he wasn't being malicious, he was,
Right.
have you thought
Right, he
about
was-
this?
Sincerely.
Problem solving.
Yep.
I have gotten questions about why we don't just purchase the grocery store building that closed, or some of these
Or the mall.
buildings that are the mall, or something like that, but we haven't done cost analysis on that, but you have to be conducive to teach school then too, but I do get some questions like that.
Yeah, I mean, we were educating kids in a portion of the mall, and we dealt with, you know, leaky roofs and poor air conditioning and
No
poor
safety.
floors, and, yeah, a real safety issue, and, you know, those are expenses that we have to weigh, that, you know, we have to decide where we want to educate our kids, and I think all our kids deserve a safe and comfortable environment.
Absolutely. What about going back to, you know, the one piece that I've observed and somebody brought it up is the potential lack of urgency or crisis. Any thoughts on that?
Well, we try to make do with what we have, we do the best we can.
Yeah, and sometimes that's our worst,
That's the thing, we're doing too good at.
Right,
getting by
at
with
making
what we
do.
have, maybe.
yeah.
But then again, you want to take care of your facilities that you do have. You know, when we were trying to pass, when the first referendum failed for the high school, we invited the public in to say, why did you vote against that? We probably had 300 people show up. And several people said, well, you don't even take care of what you have because your bathrooms aren't working right. You don't have stalls on your bathrooms, you don't have hand dryers that work, so you're not even taking care of what we gave you. So you really have to take care of what you have.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't want to have a crisis.
Well, and I think you said it, Pat, we're our own worst enemy sometimes. If you go to West Side, we've taken away our library, we've taken away closets, we've taken away the stage space to create classrooms. There's not even a bathroom in there that's open for the public where an adult can go and use. We have little kids' bathrooms in there, and that's what we're asking our teachers to use, because the spaces that had those before have been turned into
You're making good
other
points.
service areas. So, I mean, those are the kind of things that the public doesn't see.
Maybe that's the
We've
story.
been solving the problem, you know, trying to make do over there.
Maybe that's part of the story we have to tell. I mean, that would be, I mean, to me, that would be the logical concept. Okay, you know, if my house, if whatever's going wrong with my house, I have to make do until I can't. Now I have to build something new or add on or whatever. And maybe that's what we need to let people know. We've done this and we know it. But I think outside of this room, I think very few know it. If you're a teacher or faculty at Westside, you probably know it. My guess is if you're a teacher or faculty at high school or middle school, you don't have kids in Westside, you probably don't, they probably don't even know it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the question, though, how do you get that message out to the people so they understand it?
So
We sent out last.
We had the tours for how many times?
Oh, man,
We
that
had
was, that was,
flyers out, we had
And
web
one
pages,
show up.
we had
one person
Facebook.
said,
what about a,
And nobody said we didn't inform them.
Right.
So how do you reach the people to inform them? That's the question.
what about a comparison thing? Westside 10 years ago, here's our classroom space, blah, blah, blah. Westside today, here's what we don't have that we did have, here's what we've made work. Westside 10 years from now, it can't be.
how do we make it a value-added piece? A new building, a value-added piece, and you address those things that you're talking about. We will have a library there that we lost at Westside. We will have space for a special program, which we have jammed in closet spaces and stuff.
You'll have a lunchroom where we can feed more than 40 kids at a time and have to stretch the lunch period for.
Start eating at 10:30.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Don't get
another
done
one.
till 1.
I wish everybody could walk through the lunchroom at Westside and see what we're trying to service all these kids with. And it's pretty sad when a kid's got to start eating lunch at 10:30 in the morning,
Yep.
and we're still asking them to function at 2:30, you know?
We just had a conversation about that, not that, but similar to that, at yesterday's administrative team meeting in regards to the second chance breakfast. You know, we have a lot of kids who ride the bus and/or don't get to school in time to get a breakfast. In many cases, that's free or at a reduced rate. And unfortunately, there's a high percent of our students who they don't get something in the morning for whatever reason, right? So we offer second chance breakfast at I think 3 different locations, and there's challenges with it, but one of the challenges at Westside, you know, I thought, well, just bring them all to the cafeteria. It isn't big enough to do that. You know, and you've got obviously 2 floors and a variety of things, so I think things like that, you're right on. It's just unless you work there or spend time there, you don't, it's hard to recognize that, right? And there's a lot of things about every building really that people aren't aware of, and that's not their fault, and I don't know that it's our fault, it's just part of that story that we have to tell. I think. Do a better job of that.
What else am I not hitting on? Or what are other final thoughts that
Well,
each of you have?
I think a piece that is going to be in the minds of some, what are you going to do? If we vacate Westside, how are you going to handle that property?
Absolutely.
Which was an issue with Eastside.
Yep.
My opinion, we have an obligation to take that facility completely offline. The board that was in control when they built the new high school made a decision to dispose of the middle school, the old middle school.
Yep.
When was the last time you heard somebody complain about what's being done with the old middle school?
They don't.
It's gone, they don't. And we've had economic development, we've had property that's gone back on the tax rolls, and has been a great benefit to this community. So I think we have an obligation, if we're fortunate enough to get a new school, My opinion is that we should take West Side offline,
Knock it down. as
knock
quick as
it
we
down,
can.
make it go away, and then that property can be sold or whatever, so that it can go back on the tax rolls and give back to the
People are
community.
gonna have that question,
Yeah.
as they did East Side.
I think we have to be
We need
prepared
to
to
address
answer
that.
that, yep.
And I think it's more marketable than Eastside does because of the location on the golf, right on the golf course. Somebody will-
And the condition
somebody
of
will
the
wanna
facility, I
develop
mean, there's a, it's, yeah, we hammered that one. Did you know that? There's not, the facility is not in very good condition, I don't know.
West Side?
Yeah, maybe you heard that. Put that. in
Write that
notes.
down.
What other final thoughts?
We have a rainy day fund in case the boilers go out, I just want to.
Exactly, exactly.
The other one that has come up, or came up last time, is the way we had structured our debt.
Mhm.
We had it stepped up so that it had a consistent impact. So it was very, new debt was very small here initially, and then when our debt, our bonds from the high school project
Yep.
expire, then we pick up the majority of any bonds for the new school. I think we do a better job of kind of explaining that.
It's very common, I mean, to
I
wrap the
think
debt
it's a,
like
it's
that,
a,
you almost
it's a good
have to do
thing.
it.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing, but it wasn't, I don't know if we didn't explain it right, or there were just some people that didn't
They're
want to
confused.
People didn't understand.
understand it, but,
I think some of the people that didn't get it were smart people. I think it just
yeah,
didn't.
it,
Because that question came up at one of the meetings.
yeah, one we had here.
People come to me and says, well, you have Parkside paid for, how many more years you have in high school? Well, when you merge all the debt together, it doesn't, you know, I mean, it's kind of hard to explain that to them.
Right.
Well, we probably have that, but we picked up this, so your tax bill is about the same.
Or we refinanced essentially, there to save the taxpayers, multiple millions of dollars a few years back, so.
And we've been on top of that,
Mhm.
those opportunities. And we let the public know that.
Right.
I don't know if they necessarily appreciate it, but we let them know.
Yeah.
You have to.
It just needs, they just need to know that this facility will be value added
Mm-hmm,
because these are things that we've lost.
That are missing now or lost now,
The
yep.
enrollment increase.
I think that's a great point.
And I think people really generally, people have pride in Marshall. I mean, there's a general pride of being a citizen of Marshall.
If we go back to what we talked about, what's needed, I was just thinking on the way over here, do we want to put a plan together just so it'll pass, or do we want a plan that's something we will, what I'm trying to say is I don't want to short ourselves if we're just going to throw a plan together that we know will pass, or a $20 million plan or whatever.
That's a good point, because when we did put the plan out there for the high school, initially, you're gonna have another wing on there, that center is gonna sit empty. And we said, no, we're a conservative board, we'll do just the minimum to get by. And it seems like we paid a price now for making it the size we did.
So a couple of responses just to chew on. I'm a believer that you have to have a plan, period, regardless of whether that ends up being funded one of many different ways. You have to have a plan, right? And that plan could include a new elementary, it could include centralizing early childhood, it could include improving and adding to the high school, it could improve things here.
You could
But
have
it's,
3 or 4 questions.
or it's just a phased approach. You've got a plan, so you're heading in the right direction and you're not painting yourself into a corner. And then you happen to be choosing this, and this to be included in a referendum attempt. You've still got a plan.
Gotta have
You're just-
long-term facilities plan.
Correct.
You're saying that we get the elementary school built now, in 5 years from now, that's what the paper came out and said when I talked to them about
Right.
why they didn't support that. You can't do it all at once, you want a long-term plan.
You gotta have a plan.
But maybe that begs to the two questions thing, where, I mean, really, right now, our serious need is the new elementary school. And, I mean, it's not even an option, so we've got that, pulls out at the other two schools, middle school and Parkside,
Mhm.
makes that work. And then question two really is the high school, with the idea that we're asking for that for a second question, and if it doesn't pass, we're coming back with it later, because it's still a need.
Well, the other piece on top of that the public will buy is the safety piece. You know, we got the grant. I know that Scott has already questioned, well, if you build a new elementary school, what are you gonna do with the money that you got in the grant for West Side for safety? People are willing to spend money on safety. I mean, that needs to be part and parcel. That's what I'm hearing from people. Build a new elementary, 2 through 4, we'll support that, and we'll support safety initiatives. And they didn't say they didn't agree with what we saw in the bigger plan, but right now, this is what we can support right now. What you're talking about.
From a financial standpoint.
What's our next step? You know, to put it in front of them, we still have needs at the middle school. We still have needs at the high school.
You'll have
We'll be
needs,
coming back.
You'll have needs forever, right? I mean,
Yeah.
10 years from
Yeah.
now, new needs will, it's,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's the nature of the beast.
every 10-year plan we do, we consider a dynamic, I mean, every year you go reconcile and you take off what you accomplished and you add your 11, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it's an ongoing plan.
Well, given what you know of where we were and the needs that we have, how would you think that we would put it together with regard to susceptibility to our public, for our public to be wrap their arms around?
I think, and I'm still formulating, but I think to answer your question, you guys are hitting on a lot of the same themes we're picking up on. I think communication is a huge part of it. I think you have 5 or 6 or 10 frequently asked questions that you have to just get out there and dispel rumors or misinformation and just slap people with to make sure the record is set and who owns what and why something was built and how this plays into it. I think you have to do that. And I think you're on the right track with developing a long-range plan and then prioritizing what you think can be handled by the tax base. As a public entity and as a school district, unfortunately, you've got any decision you make is kind of a three-legged stool, right? You've got educational implications as one leg, you've got financial implications as one leg, and you've got political implications as one leg of the stool, or whatever you want to call it. But for better or worse, really any decision you guys are making, you're kind of having to factor all of those things in, right? Is it politically palatable with the community? Is it educationally advantageous to what we're doing from a mission standpoint and financial? If you're a private entity, 90% of that focus could be on the financial, right? Is it a sound business decision? You've got that balance you have to play with. So.
Value added. And the other thing each of us has heard is, and I know that it is the only place where people can vote no to taxes. And some
Yep.
people use that as an excuse.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And, you know, it's for us to define this as a value added for your taxes, a value added for this community.
That's a big deal. That's a good philosophy. We hadn't heard that yet in our input, and I think it's
Well, we need to tell the story of West Side, what we've lost, and where the kids are in locker rooms and on the stage, and we lost the library, and we can't feed our kids all at one time for breakfast. That story needs to be told. You know, well, yeah, we know the boilers are going out, we know it's 57 years old, but, you know, other buildings are that old. We just remodeled the Holy Redeemer, you know, it's those kinds of things. But I think that story of we just need to get down the nitty gritty and maybe take some pictures also and put it in the paper. I mean, our library is in a little tiny room up on the third deck. What a shame. But people don't know that.
Right.
We need to tell that story. And then the other piece, Scott, that I think you've done a great job as the world's best workforce, is what we want to do in vocational education. That piece, our public knows, we're going to be short of electricians, we're going to be short of plumbers,
Carpenter,
carpenters,
Diesel mechanics.
butchers,
welders, butchers.
welders, but
All
it's
the
true.
trades.
Nurses.
It's true. Our farmers support FFA. They support a welding program, and I think our public would support that. And that's the other piece that we need to add as value added for the additional space at the high school.
Right.
What is industry asking? They're asking for those skills.
Exactly.
I don't know, I'm preaching to the choir, but we just, that's part of the long-range plan. Hey, we need to give these opportunities to our kids.
Absolutely.
I mean, I talked to my grandson, he's not hands-on, and well, we got a friend who's carpentry, Corey, making a ton of money as a carpenter. He said, I should have thought about doing that.
They're not blue-collar jobs, they're gold-collar,
I know,
they're gold-collar
I know.
jobs right now. So people are aware.
But I think you've done a good job with that need, Scott. But I think we need to tell the story better at the high school.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's part of what's part of our plan.
Well, this helps a lot. I don't know, Scott, am I missing anything, or?
No, I think this was just about truly an opportunity for the board to, it's been a while since collectively you've all been together and had a chance to have these sorts of discussions, so, and obviously to use the input and ideas, many of which Pat has already heard and we've already heard, but just to utilize that in the ultimate decision-making, whatever that looks like and whenever it takes place.
Are we still looking at April as a target date?
We really talked about that, though.
Okay.
I mean, we, probably a year ago, we had some discussions about when it might be, but the next one's gotta be right.
It'll be solid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Did the total price come up with people you talked to?
Absolutely.
I mean, under 30 million, under 40 million, or?
Yeah, I mean, everything you hit on there's a clear understanding of the need to replace West Side out there. And from what I've gathered so far, that is a very high priority for the vast majority of folks.
So just what I've heard, if we can keep it under 30 million, I think
Yep.
it will be done.
I didn't hear price. I haven't heard price.
I think the other part too, the question that came up, well, why don't you just add on to the middle school? And I think it's important for us to remind people, we did the research on that. We have that research that shows, what it would cost to add on. And I think another big part of that is how many kids that puts in one campus, which our community clearly said, no, we don't want that. We got a lot of feedback saying, we don't want that big of a building site. So that'll just need to be some other information that we need to share and remind people that we did that research a couple years ago. That hasn't changed. I mean, the costs obviously have gone up, but the comparisons.
The advantage we have, and what we discussed, is building the site, the new elementary off of Saratoga, on property that we already own.
Right.
Southview.
Right.
We already
right.
have the property.
Yeah.
I remember sitting at Perkins when Schwann's gave us the land for the new high school. And two guys were sitting behind me, and they were talking and badmouthing what we were doing. And they said, here's Schwann's doing it again. They're dictating where the building's going to be built. And I'm thinking, what school district wouldn't like to have a benefactor like Schwann's has been?
Yeah.
But that's another thing with regard to a new elementary is we already have the proper
Yeah.
land.
Yeah.
That's a big piece.
Absolutely.
How about you, Pat? I mean, do you have what you want?
I do, yeah, this helped a lot. And it's clear, a few different perspectives, but from what I gather, and unless I'm reading it wrong, you guys are pretty well aligned too, just from everyone's aware of what the major issues are, and it's a matter of trying to pull it together and and to work through what we think we can bite off.
And make it value added.
Yeah.
And we can make it value added. We can by just stating, you know, this is what we lost. This is what we're losing. This is what our kids are losing.
Anything else that you guys would like to add?
I'd like to say thank you for this opportunity, Scott. Thank you for the questions you asked, Pat.
Absolutely, yeah. It helps a lot to frame things.
When I think the feedback from you visiting with leaders in the community in different groups was good. I mean, I think people really liked you. They felt like you were very approachable and, you know, listened. Well, no, very positive, as
Oh,
opposed
good.
to
That's good
calling them in
feedback.
and saying, well, here's what's going to happen. I'm just letting you know,
Yeah.
you didn't do it that way.
No, and I think that whether it's here or anywhere, it's got to be authentic. I mean, we have to listen and take the input. You can't, if it's already baked, people are going to sniff that out and realize it.
I think the important part of that is too, is I had people ask, well, why was I asked? I said, because board members and administrators nominated people that represent all cross sections, for, against, undecided,
Yep.
because we want to know, and your opinion's valued. You said it, we're not going in here with a plan ahead of time. We really want to hear what people think so that we can get a true representation and make the best decisions. So,
Right.
It's their school system.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Scott.